Oh, by the way, guys, I just noticed our camera's running and our recording has started.
Did you do that really?
I sure did. We've been going for the last few minutes. Just thought I would let you guys know that, hey, we're live.
Clark, I'm going to get you, man. You caught me cleaning up my ofless.
I think that's my cue to bring us in then.
Bob, that is your cue to bring us in.
All right. Okay. All right. Hello and welcome, everyone, to the second webcast done by the three regionals from U.S. term limits. We are very happy to have you join us today. We got myself, Bob Berry. I'm the Western Regional Director, and I am in broadcasting from Denver, Colorado. And we have Ken Clark. Ken, tell everybody where you're from.
I'm broadcasting from Charleston, South Carolina. That's the beauty of this technology because, Bob, the sun hasn't even come up in Denver, Colorado. As you can see, the sun's up behind me in South Carolina. We've got Quinn in Maine. Welcome aboard, Quinn.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Doing good.
Hey, Clark, how much coffee have you had to drink already?
Actually, not enough. I got up late this morning, and this is my second cup, and so yeah, it is a big cup, but it's a huge cup. And it's funny because when I first hit the record button, we were talking about all the corruption in Washington, D.C., that you cannot root it out. And Bob, I love the story you told about rooting out, or about how politicians go to Washington, D.C., and they're never the same. It's true with all of them.
They're just never the same. It's the funniest thing. And I was on a show, a TV show up in Larimer County. This is a county they were going to try and get rid of term limits for the sheriff and a couple other positions. And I don't know what came over me, but I said, I know this is kind of a weird analogy, but I said, you ever watching one of these prison movies? And they got the guy who's coming in, you just think like the Shawshank Redemption, right? And they got this guy coming in and his eyes, there's just terror in his eyes, and he's looking around and everybody's mocking him and cat calls and everything else. And then they cut to the guy a few years later and he's practically running the place, right? And that's how I think of members of Congress. My father used to joke about this phenomenon all the time. He said, just takes them a few, and especially when you put in basically perfunctory re-elections, when a re-election, because of your incumbency war chest, is like 10x of even a good proponent, unless they're a self-financed multi-zillionaire, you're going to blow them out of the water every 2 years, just like clockwork. It's like some sort of a joke, right? And what's going to happen to you in that process? You are going to change.
Yeah. Well, let's bring it around. How do we solve this problem? I think we have the answer, guys. Don't you?
Well, we do. And Quinn, you were talking, and the last episode we did was your basic introduction to term limits. And Quinn, real quick, and then talk about, there is exciting things going on all across the country, and we're going to bring you up to date on what's been happening. But Quinn, what is our solution?
Yeah, well, our solution, it's not going to be an easy solution, and it's not going to be the silver bullet, but it's going to take us in the right direction in a very quick way once we accomplish it, and that is term limits on Congress. Term limits is nothing new. Our founding nation, many of the state constitutions had term limits in their constitution. Our very first constitution, the Articles of Confederation, had term limits. Back then it was called rotation of office, where they could serve for a couple, I think it was a year, or was it 3 years they could serve? They had to be out for a number of years. And so it limited how often they could be in office. And this is something that is foundational to liberty. And I think looking back now, if the framers were here today, I bet you most of them would say, you know what, when we had that discussion about rotation of office, I wish now, looking back on things, we put it in the Constitution. Thomas Jefferson, I don't know if, he had this, when he saw the Constitution, he wrote a letter to Madison. He said, listen, I like it, but there's some things again about it I don't. Two things I greatly dislike. You didn't put in a Bill of Rights, okay? And you didn't put in rotation of office, especially on the president. Well, Mr. Jefferson, we all know, is right. We got the Bill of Rights shortly thereafter, and then back in 1951, we finally got term limits on the president. And so what we need to do is take it to the next level and obviously get this on all members of Congress so that we can return that body, to get rid of career politicians and open it up for citizen legislators. That's our goal.
what really bothers me is we've got people in office on both sides of the aisle that have never been out in the real world, and politics is their career. And the only way you get anything done in this environment is by making deals, cutting backroom deals, and selling out the American public to further your own agenda. And you do anything and everything to get elected. In Colorado, we've got a terrific example of that, a Republican by the name of Cory Gardner. Okay, and he's just an example, but he will do whatever it takes to get reelected. He's just an example. There are people on both sides of the aisle that do the same thing, right? Bob?
This is a very dangerous situation because we kind of got the message with the president, we have this presidential tradition of 2 terms and you're out. And then FDR decides to run for 15 million terms and, breaking that precedent. Now really any president in the future is relieved from the burden of history. Right. So they said, all right, we're going to take care of this right now. So whoever it was that led that charge deserves a lot of credit because that was a very gutsy thing to do. Right. But what history has shown us is now America could have devolved into essentially theoretically a dictatorship where you just have the same president your whole life. And what do we see? In some of these third world countries, one of the first things if they've ever had like a revolution and created a new constitution, and sometimes it was even the guy who ended up president who had a hand in making the constitution. What do that term sounds like a really good idea. And then all of a sudden they get in office and they're like, no, we think this is not so great. Right. So this is why you have what's just recently happened in China, pick your third world country. All these different countries that's the first thing they want to get rid of. And so I say when you kind of go to your point, Ken Clark, you got one president who's got term limits, and then you got 535 people in Congress, right? You got 435 in the House, you got another 100 in the Senate. And essentially what we're finding is the only thing worse than one potential despot is 535 of them who you can't get rid of. And right. I mean, think about it. So essentially, if you wonder how a nation like ours can get into this tailspin where you come out the other end an oligarchy, and an oligarchy is government by a few, and 535 plus a president plus 9 members of the Supreme Court, that's that few people are governing a country of over 300 million. There's your definition of oligarchy.
There you go. So we need to establish term limits on members of Congress. That is what this movement is all about. And it's the only way to stop the corruption of career politicians. I mean, that's it. Because, Bob, you mentioned it, the money machine that is favoring the incumbents, and it's both sides of the aisle. Again, this is a nonpartisan effort. I keep trying to make that very, very clear because it's both sides of the aisle. They're no different. I mean, take a look at the omnibus bill that was given to us by Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan. I mean, really? With $1.3 trillion in brand new deficit spending? You got to be kidding. And that's supposed to be the fiscally conservative side of the aisle. So we've got a lot of really, really good things happening all over the country, and there is some massive momentum building going. And something just happened yesterday. Quinn, take it away. Tell us what's going on.
Yes, I'm going to see if I can do a little sound effect here. Give me a second. I'm going to...
You and your sound effects, boy.
A little drum roll. Yeah, the exciting news yesterday, last evening, I don't know, a little bit after dinner time, the Missouri Senate passed our resolution. It was SCR 40, I believe is the number. It's early in the morning still, folks. And so that it was a 22-9 vote in the Missouri Senate last night. And so we are very excited. That went down bipartisan. So we had folks on both sides of the aisle supporting this. And now the next step, Missouri is well positioned to be, hi, babe. My wife's going to work. Missouri's the next state to be the one that passes our term limits Article 5 application. So the vote in the House will probably be coming up in a couple of weeks. And so what we're going to be doing, and you guys are joining me, we're going to Missouri next week. We're going to have descent onto the state capitol. And so I'm really excited about getting together with you guys, with our volunteers, and getting involved and engaged with these legislators, firming up our supporters in the legislature, and those that are on the fence, getting them on with us to make Missouri the next state. So
Quinn, how did that vote come about? Because that kind of took us a little bit by surprise. I wasn't expecting it, right?
But wait, before he answers that question, Ken Clark, I got to ask you, what were you doing? Because you got the same text that I got. And this is the last thing we expected. I mean, what was your reaction when you got that text?
Oh, I was really surprised. I was having my breakfast, lunch, and dinner because yesterday was a very busy day, so I didn't get to eat at all. I was having my breakfast, lunch, and dinner with my wife, Pam, and I got the text and was like, holy cow, I just about choked on my meal.
Well, hey, listen, I'm not going to go into details, but there's some things going on in Missouri right now. So you guys know how this stuff works. It is fluid. You never know what can happen, when it can happen. And that's why it is so critical that we have our volunteers engaged and ready to go. And that's why now we want everyone to know we're coming out to Missouri. We're going to need as much support as possible, and let's get this over the edge in the end zone and on to the next state and build momentum off of this. I'm excited. This is great news, guys.
We're on the 1 yard line there, man, and I got to tell you, this is incredibly exciting. And sometimes it does happen like that, and a lot of people who are watching this maybe don't do what we do for a living, and so maybe they don't realize this. This is kind of an exciting thing. Because sometimes you know what's going to happen, and sometimes it comes out of the blue like this. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that's more encouraging to me, well, obviously the huge margin of victory is fantastic. I've been going all over the West talking to state senators, state representatives, and I'm saying, I want to win, okay? I want to win the state. We got to win, but here's the deal. It's the way we win that's important. We have got to have bipartisan support, because if we do not get bipartisan support, we get this lopsided victory that's 100%, members of one party and 100% parties, the other party voting against, then that gives us all kinds of heartburn. And so to me, the most encouraging thing after the victory itself is the way that it was won in Missouri. So congratulations for that.
Yeah, congratulations, Quinn. That's huge, but that's not all. We've got a lot of most states have finished or about to finish their legislative season. It typically starts in January, ends in April, May, sometime around then. There are a couple of states that have year-round legislatures. But we've got other states in play right now as well. Bob, talk about Arizona. What's going on there?
Yeah, Arizona's has been a real slog because I've been it's practically been my second home, going back and forth between Denver and Phoenix, and we have it's been a real tight thing. Arizona has been very friendly to Article 5, so we really didn't have to get into a lot of details. They got the memo on Article 5 and they understand it. Problem is, it was on one side of the aisle. They were associating that because all the previous things had been of a particular political point of view, and it wasn't theirs. And so they were identifying Article 5 as necessarily partisan. So I've had to do a lot of work on the other side of the aisle from the party that's comfortable with Article 5 to get the other side comfortable with Article 5 and understand that Article 5 is not a partisan thing. And furthermore, obviously, congressional term limits is not a partisan thing.
Oh, that is incredible. That is what is so exciting about what we're doing. This is completely nonpartisan, and this issue, term limits on Congress, is the number one issue that can unite both sides of the political spectrum.
It's, I say it all the time. So, if there's one thing we can work on together, that's fine. And we have both parties represented in our organization. We have both parties represented in our volunteer force, and what we find is that it's kind of like Thanksgiving, right? You always have that member of the family, whatever political persuasion you are, there's going to be some house guest that thinks differently, and they can annoy you, they can do everything else, but they're family, all right?
Right.
And we're Americans, and so this is what I'm reminding everybody: this is something we can do together. And but we're getting through Arizona by the skin of our teeth so far, and finally, I think we've been through the House committee. The House by like one vote. Then we got to the Senate by one vote in the first committee, and then we're gonna be on the floor. We've got a couple things going on with the scheduling right now. We only have 2 weeks left in this term, and the only thing, by the way, that's going to keep me from going to Missouri next week is if Arizona goes on the floor then, and then obviously I'm going to have to divert. But there's also the possibility we do both, because you guys are all going to be in Missouri, and we might need you guys to come with me to Phoenix. So, pack a little heavier.
Okay, I will.
Longer than you think.
I can do that. I can definitely do that. And that's not all. That's not all. We've got a legislative season starting in North Carolina next month. Mm-hmm. It starts in the very first week of May. Article 5 has had some limited success in North Carolina already. They've passed some measures in the Senate, having issues punching it through the House. The Speaker of the House is on board, but U.S. term limits resolution, we're going to introduce it in the Senate, hopefully next week. And we're working on getting sponsors and co-sponsors in North Carolina, but we need volunteers. We need help, because we've got a real shot at making some major headway in North Carolina. And it's very fortuitous because the session starts so late, we can focus a lot of our resources that normally we wouldn't be able to focus on a single state, meaning Bob, you, Ken, Quinn, you as well. And then we've got Sean that can help us. We've got a lot of assets that we can deploy to North Carolina as well as Missouri. We've still got time in Missouri and Arizona. So, but we need all the help we can get in these states, because we need people contacting their legislator and telling them, please support term limits. This is the way that we, from a state level, can influence what goes on in Washington, D.C. And that's what we all want. We're all very frustrated about not being able to influence what they do, and they act with impunity. And they never have to worry about getting reelected. They never have to worry about anything. They don't have to worry about recourse. Just take a look at the corruption. There is no justice. If you and I did the same things that they are guilty of doing, we'd be in jail. They call it politics, and it's wrong, and we can stop it. And we have the opportunity in Missouri, Arizona, and North Carolina to affect some change right now. I think it's exciting. It's an exciting time to be part of this movement.
Hey, Bob, so how can, let's bring this to a close here. How can folks get involved? If they're listening to us right now, what can they do right now to take the next step to helping us?
Yeah, the first step is you got to let us know you're out there. And you do that by going to termlimits.com and just hit the volunteer or the petition button, however you want to engage with us. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just kind of get familiar with the website. There's all kinds of materials on there, but the main thing is don't just go there and read it. You got to take that next step and let us know you're out there. If you do that, and I got a promise I'm going to make you, okay? Some organizations, and they're not even in Article 5 organizations, that you get involved with, if you're an activist of any kind, when you give them your email, that you're going to get this barrage of emails. And I'm going to make you a personal promise right now. We are going to we're going to respect your email address. We're not going to give it to anybody else. We're going to give you just kind of what we're doing. We're going to engage with you this way. And we want to create a relationship here. And you don't create a relationship by abusing somebody's email address. So that's our personal commitment to you. Let us know you're out there, and then we're going to tell you where the hotspots are when it's the right time. And we're definitely, the more the merrier. I mean, we need people to show up and especially in Missouri and in Arizona right now, because these two states are going critical, and we are going to need as many people filling those capitals up. And I got to tell you something, you've never done this before, and both of you guys, kick it back to you. It's one of the most exciting things, isn't it?
It is so much fun to walk the Capitol, actually engage the people that represent you and live and work in your district, and let them know how you feel. There is nothing more powerful than that. You go to Washington, D.C. and try to get a meeting with your Congress critter. It's not going to happen. You go to the Capitol in your state and try to get a meeting with your state representative, and it will happen. Because they do truly want to talk to you, because they live in your district. Now, the people in Washington, D.C. supposedly live in your district.
Oh, sure.
But it's next to impossible to get a meeting with those guys. You can really, truly get to meet these people, talk to them, engage with them, find out who they are, what their hot buttons are, what their beliefs are, and tell them how you feel. And that's a powerful thing. Quinn?
Absolutely. And, when we get to Missouri, that's going to be our number one goal, is to have as many pre-scheduled appointments with legislators to join the constituents as possible, because we got to firm up this vote going into it in the House, And I'm hoping to keep you guys real busy throughout the day in these meetings with the constituents and their legislators. So I'm looking forward to it. At our website, just click on where it says Take Action and then go to Volunteer. We have a number of different ways you can get involved. You know, not everyone can make it to the Capitol, but you could write a letter to the editor. So please let us know. Connect with us, and we will help you along the way to get involved. And we really need the support wherever you are, whatever state you're in. We're at all different levels of where we're progressing, and so let's get the ball going now, and we'll get this done for America.
Now, next week is going to be very different. We are going to do a broadcast just like this one, but also because the three of us are going to be in theater in Missouri, possibly Arizona as well, we're going to try to do one of these broadcasts with all three of us in the same room. That ought to be
Bob's got a new toy.
Yeah, Bob's got a new toy, so we're going to try that out.
We could use that maybe on the road. There we go.
Absolutely.
This is the gimbal. This is, by the way, I was on my way to the post office when I got your crazy text, and I looked at my phone. I'm like, what? But yeah, so we're going to be able to use this. So we got some cool equipment, folks. That's going to allow us. All of this is to engage with you better, and I want you to know that when you do make us to the Capitol, whichever Capitol it is, we're going to be doing this roadshow for the rest of the year. These legislatures get out of they go into adjournment. We go into grassroots mode. But until then, we're going to be your tour guides. So you go to the Capitol, you're not going alone. You're going with us. And we'll get you
absolutely.
Where you're going to need to be. There's no fear. Should be no anxiety whatsoever. We're going to tell you exactly how the process works, and it's going to be, just be prepared to have a lot of fun. And because we're fun guys.
We will be there. It'll be a real treat. So until next week, this is U.S. Term Limits signing off. Have a great week, and please get engaged.